Okay, so hi everyone. If we've never met before, I'm Nama Blonder. I'm an architect and urban planner with Smart Density. I today it's kind of a unique webinar because I'm the speaker. Usually I have guest speakers, so this is unique, and I'm very excited and almost nervous. And I got some emails from you asking, about the future of cars. So I just wanted to say this webinar is nothing, it's really not futuristic or, utopian or dystopian. It's just about how we can design today the built environment to be less car dependent or less cars first mentality. And I hope that I really hope that the name didn't mislead anyone, and I'm trying to set the expectations. This is really about urban design in today's planning sphere, on how we can design cities, neighborhoods, districts that really put people first and create walkable environments, and not just say they do, as I find that many projects do. And with that, let's get started. So the presentation I'm about to share with you is a keynote presentation I presented in early March with the specifications, construction specifications Canada organization. And I thought it will be a terrific opportunity to share it with you as a webinar. And with that, let's get started. I am going to leave the presentation in this mode and not a full screen mode, because I won't be able to see you if I do like a full screen share. So feel free to type your questions. I will get to them at the end. So let's get started by telling you why I am car sick. And I want to tell you about my best friend and myself. And both of us were looking for a new home for our families, and specifically for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That was kind of our wish list. And we wanted it to be close to schools and parks because we both have 2 kids, and we're both in our mid-30s, so we're very similar. And let me tell you what we got. So we bought, you know what, I can do that. Hopefully we'll see each other. And we both got, let me tell you what we got. So we both got a 3-bedroom. She got a semi-detached and I got a 3-bedroom condo. She has 4 baths. I have 2 baths. Her new home is close to school, a short drive, and mine is also close to school, a short walk. She found a 1,700 square feet semi-detached, and ours is just over 1,000. She lives in, her home is a 3-level semi-detached, and mine is 1 level. She had to buy another car the day she moved in, so now she has 2 cars and we have none. She lives in Vaughan. I live in Toronto. My family lives in Toronto. Oh yeah, and she paid more than 20% more for what she bought than what we paid. This is her backyard. It's a lovely little backyard, and this is our backyard. It's a newly constructed park in the city, near a food court, a community center, a dog park, and a playground. And this is, by the way, my kid. And I wanted to say that my kid is the one wearing the Paw Patrol shirt, but then I realized both of them wear a Paw Patrol shirt. So, so my kid is this one, the one that stands standing up. Now, I want you to think today is 2023, and we talk about the affordability crisis. And I just want you to play fast forward for a moment in your head, in your mind, and think how this will be when my kid will be my age, which is 2054. Think about the affordability then in the future, if we're not going to make some drastic changes in the way we think, plan, and design and build. And And I think, the choice that we made, and make no mistakes, it was a choice, a decision that my partner and I made to live in an area where we won't have a car, we won't own a car. We live close to where we work, school, daycare, and the park is our backyard. And at a private backyard buys me more time that I spend with my 2 children, with my partner, recreation, go to yoga, whatever, but I don't spend it on commuting. And in many cases, especially after COVID, when we heard, the secondary markets are booming, and now going back to the office, even if, only few days a week, and long commute means that you spend about 1/6 or 1/8 of the day driving. And that is a lot. And we know that there's a direct correlation between the state of wait. I see, I'm reading your notes. Sorry. You know what? I'll just stay here because I'll just stay here. So here, that was the slide on the backyard and showing you my backyard switching between the years 2023 and 2054. And then I was talking about how that was a deliberate choice and a decision that we made of living in walkable environment where we can walk to work, school, and daycare and not commuting. And here I am right here. And that is because, and we know that there's a relationship between the state of your relationship with your partner to how long you commute. This is a very interesting facts or statistics from a beautiful book called Country of Cities. And we also know that there is a direct relation or correlation between the suburbs and health, and specifically obesity. And these stats that I'm sharing with you is from the latest census tract. So this is very recent and accurate. And we know that, the city of Toronto will tell you very proudly that 47% of Torontonians live in apartments that are 5 stories or higher. And you hear that and say, wow, that's great. But then you realize that they only live or consume 8.5% of the land. Because you see, I extracted 2 colors from the City of Toronto land use map, where you are even allowed to have a building of 5 stories or higher. And you're only allowed to have it on apartment neighborhoods or mixed use areas in the land use map. And they take together, combined, 8.5% of the land in the city. So 47% of Torontonians only consume 8.5% of the land. So you ask yourself, where is the rest? And this is, I'm sure you heard of the term, the yellow belt. This is where the rest, the 53%, live in detached, semi-detached, or townhouse in what is called the neighborhoods and designated neighborhoods, or yellow in the official plan. And I'm sure you've seen this chart gazillion times. I'm sure you did. Now, transportation, and this is how much carbon emissions by sector, how much carbon emission produced by sector. So we have transportation for 22%, construction for 11%, and building operations for 28%. So I could say pretty with confidence that the way we design the built environment, and I don't want to say just cities, because we have roads, we have, industrial areas, whatever, but the way we design the built environment counts for 61% of carbon emissions we produce. So this is a pretty significant number that affects the way that the way we plan and design our cities and built environment as a whole. counts for 61%. And they will tell you that the way to solve the affordability is to build more houses, consume more land, building more roads. And this is a quote that I really like. You're not stuck in traffic, you are traffic. And that links directly to the line that I mentioned earlier about the choice of your lifestyle. And they tell you that we need to build more roads to make it easier on traffic. And there's a study that's been done in the US showing that a 10% increase in the amount of road space leads to a 10% increase in the amount people drive. So building more roads is not the solution for the problem. The more we build, the more jammed they are. And I want to lead towards a concept that says that gray is green. And we tend to think that if we'll have a very green technology or I don't know, whatever, green rooftop on a building that is somewhere remote and everyone needs to drive there, like in an office park or some older models of suburban office parks or shopping malls, and it will have a green rooftop, it will be an act of sustainability. But the true act of sustainability is actually to build more compact and denser urban environments where the park is the backyard. And we need to lead and start moving towards that understanding. And in North America, this understanding is far from taking to be the current state of mind. And I want to compare Toronto to other developed cities and how much we commute by car. So in Tokyo, only 12% of the residents of Tokyo commute by car daily. Also, two interesting facts in Japanese streets, only a third of them are not even wide enough for a car. And 95% of Japanese streets don't even have street parking. So we had Tokyo on 12%, Amsterdam just above quarter of the residents of Amsterdam commute by car daily. We have New York with 30%, and we have London with 37%. And the Greater Toronto area is 83%. But at least we're not in Dallas, which is 90% commute by car daily. So I'm going to finish chapter 1 with that a little bit of a pessimistic view, and we are going to talk about the investment that we do in transit. And we do have a long catch-up to do, but let's talk about the current transit investments that we have. And these are some of the current transit projects that we have. And I marked the GO expansion because of how I don't want to say cheap, but in comparison to the other transportation modes, how the cost that it is. And that is because the infrastructure already exists, and we're talking about electrifying the lines. And I know you tend to think of the GO train or the GO service as this service that it's only once in half an hour. If you miss a train, you're going to wait for 29 minutes in the snow, in the cold. And another interesting fact that people don't believe me when I bring that up, in many of the lines, it's a single line. So for example, if you want to take the GO station from Union to Vaughan in the morning and come back in the afternoon, you cannot. Because there's a single track, it's called the commuter train. You can only take it from Vaughan to Union in the morning and come back at 5 p.m. And now the GO expansion project is electrifying the lines, making it all service all day to both ways. So hopefully with that, it will be something much closer to a subway than what it is right now. And we have other projects that we currently plan and are in the budget. But the interesting thing is that there's still a lot of debate And I hear people saying that they don't want transit built and it's not how we should spend our taxpayers' money, etc. Another interesting transit project is the King Street, the King Streetcar pilot that before COVID, it used to have the King Street as a corridor, used to have 20,000 vehicles every day and 65 people took the streetcar. And now, and the data is prior to COVID, but it increased to 84 riders on an average weekday, which is really impressive because this number is getting close to a subway capacity. And what is really amazing, if you ask me about this pilot, first of all, it started as a pilot, so not too many studies, too lengthy engagement. It was in Toronto's terms was almost overnight. But what I really like about it, and I like it as an example, is that the infrastructure was there. It was, if you compare how much this corridor costs the city or the taxpayers' money to become, it's a small, tiny fraction from any other transportation project. But all we had to do is to shift our priorities, and we said streetcar and people first and cars last. So if you're not familiar with the streetcar pilot or the King corridor, cars are not completely excluded, but they are supposed to only use the King corridor as a one block and turn right after one block. It unfortunately is not really being enforced, but that was the intent behind it. Another interesting is that New York's plan to upgrade 20 miles of bike lanes to be protected bike lanes. Now, if you ask me, 20 miles doesn't sound like a lot, and they really did it overnight with some paint and then made it permanent. But I think I was in New York in September for the first time after COVID, and it was very permanent, and it was very the change was very prominent, and it really changed the way the city is preserved, and also made big parts of Broadway and Times Square completely pedestrianized, and it's a really great transformation. And we can't talk about commuting by bike without talking about or mentioning Copenhagen, with 62% of the residents of Copenhagen commute daily by bike. And I know, Copenhagen is not exactly in the Middle East, and it's not warm and shiny 9 months of the year. They have rough winter, not as, Toronto has 3 times the snowy days in comparison to Copenhagen. I checked. However, you can tell that it is a priority for the city because bike lanes are being the snow from bike lanes is being removed first from bike lanes. Something that here in Toronto, not only that it's not being removed, the snow is piled on the bike lane. We also had the bike lane pilot that was approved by council to become permanent just in early March, so not even just over a month ago, and it basically converted from 4 lanes to 2 lanes along Yonge Street, and increased almost double the cycling capacity on the street, and also only increased the traffic time by 90 seconds. And those who objected the bike lane oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me. If there's a problem, let me know in the text. Okay, we cannot see you. Okay, I'll turn on the camera when I'll finish. I don't know what happened to my connection. Something happened though. Wait. I apologize, guys. Yeah, I turned on the laptop camera for some reason and not my main camera. I'll turn it on. I'll turn the camera on when I'm done the presentation so we can take the Q&A. And they had a really interesting excuse. They said that by increasing the traffic by 90 seconds, it actually increases carbon emission because the car spends a longer time on the road. So therefore, adding bike lanes is not sustainable. Yeah, I know, very interesting. We also had, in New York in 1982, waived any residential parking minimums. So 40 years later, Toronto did the same. And there aren't any parking minimums in residential projects. So basically, it is up to the private market to decide how many parking spots they want to deliver. And there is, of course, some requirements for visitor parkings or accessible parkings, but not necessarily a ratio that is attached to the number of units. So I think that's a really great step forward. And this is a screenshot taken directly from, I just want to give credit to BDP Quadrangle from the Low Carbon Now information. They have a lot of information and I really recommend checking it out. But what I find interesting is that they did a comparison of how many parking, the number of levels of below grade parking and how much of carbon it saves. Now, that 13% is actually a really interesting number because in order for us to really achieve net zero by 2030, our buildings need to, the carbon emission from buildings need to be decreased by 40%. So if we are achieving 13%, so a third of our goal, okay, a third of the 40%, almost a third, by just eliminating underground parking, just by that, it's a really big step forward. Now, okay, so we do transit-oriented developments, and I want to talk for a moment about the way we design them. This is us going to take the subway to the Vaughan Metropolitan Center, so this is all new, an award-winning master plan. And if you ask me, this is what I see, a naked, oversized plaza of nothingness, and you have a tall building spread out, and you think that this is me trying to cross this is the entrance to the subway station, and you have 2 lanes per each direction, and all of a sudden, boom, you need to cross almost 6 lanes, or even if 4 or 5. And I don't know about you, I wouldn't feel very safe riding my bike here. So, and we have that tendency to think this is Lakeshore, just another example of new areas, that everything, if you have a tall building, it needs to be on this large podium, and the large podium needs to be on this massive urban block and across the street. And in order to cross the street, a tall building needs to have a really wide street. That formula, or that equation that many of us designers, public planners think that with a tall building, there need to be a really wide street, or with a tall building, it needs to sit on a really large and massive podium. And this is how we design our streets, and this is how it looks like. This is City Place, a neighborhood that I love. I go here every weekend with my kid. Look how wide the street is, and look at this leftover, because they didn't want to add more lanes that they had to, and I really appreciate that. But then they had this kind of a leftover in the middle where they just grass. So everything is oversized. Here's another example in Vaughan. And oftentimes those massive podiums are very repetitive, are not pleasant to walk by. They're not interesting enough.
to walk by. So I'm asking you and everyone else, are people really being put first, which is the kind of the slogan of any transit-oriented development today? People first, walkable communities. So I want to discuss the way we design transit-oriented communities today, and I want to propose a new approach, because Smart Density, my company, was hired to design a master plan near a future GO station. And this is a comparison of the cookie cutter transit-oriented development, those massive roads of 4 lanes at the bare minimum with those U-shaped podiums and a tower. And you can see that this is our master plan. And you can see how we have narrower streets and much smaller blocks this is really Jane Jacobs 101, to create a landscape that changes. This is it. And what we also allowed, and don't get me wrong, we did lower the height of the podium, but we do have some towers to absorb the required density. And because we are rewriting the rules here, and it's a master plan near a future GO station, and yes, this is not downtown Toronto, but we said we have the opportunity to rewrite the rules and create street typologies that are, let's work with whatever we decide to be attractive and desirable, and that is probably by definition means to narrow the streets and also lower the street wall to 4 stories in some areas. And a third of the street in this master plan are completely, I'm showing you the shared streets, or completely are free. A third of the streets are car light or shared streets, like the European model, and a third of them is completely the traditional vehicle streets, just narrower than what the traffic standards dictate, which is oftentimes ridiculously wide. And I want you to remember that planning those transit-oriented communities, the time is now, because these master plans are oftentimes, and yes, when we talk about master planning or these neighborhoods, the years 2030, 2040, 2050, this is a realistic timeline that we are talking about the completion of these projects. Or in my case, 2054, the year where my kid will turn my age. And all I can hope for that by that generation, by the time that my kid needs to make her housing choice, living in a compact environment of where the mode of transportation is public transit and the park is your backyard, will be the norm. Thank you for that. So I am going to turn on my camera, which is here from my laptop, and I see you have some questions. Okay. So a question from Dawn. You might get to this later, but high-rise builds tend to be less environmentally friendly and more expensive. Too dense builds also contribute to heat island and flood risk. How do we balance intensification benefits with risks? So Dawn, unfortunately, first of all, there's tons of research that shows that even all of those glass buildings, and Dawn, you and I know each other, so I will find that research and share it with you. But even all of the glass buildings that quote unquote are in the city are way more sustainable in terms of heat loss than a single detached house that is just an envelope, not to mention how expensive it is to build new infrastructure across every time we need to intensify, right? So I disagree with that statement. Is there room for improvement? 100%, but I wouldn't say building dense and sharing and reducing your footprint and living in a more compact way than consuming more land, building more road, building infrastructure is by no doubt more sustainable than the alternative. Is the comparison of car commuting fair? I.e., you compare New York with the entire GTA. Is the New York number of 30% the entire greater New York area? Yes. So I made sure that I'm comparing it apples to apples, and also I quoted the book that I took those numbers from. And by the way, New York was the only North American city beyond Toronto and Dallas. Everyone else was, all the other cities I compared to were European cities, and that is not a coincidence that they were European cities because of effective and efficient transit that New York has, probably, right? So the comparison is apples to apples. The King Street pilot, unfortunately, is broken. Since COVID, it has been neglected. The street space is a mess. There is no enforcement. Cars go straight through. Michael, I'm very much with you. Has been much reduced. Why is this not an issue in the mayoral by-election? Michael, I'm with you, no doubt. What kind of pushback and challenges have you experienced in advancing this agenda with key stakeholders on your project? That's a great question, Abel. Thank you. And the thing is, from what I have, is that when we did zero parking projects or design proposals way before the city waived the parking minimums, and all of the projects were, what we call smart density, near public transit, multi-unit, for families, rental. And then I had members of the public attending the open houses and say, do you expect us to believe that families could live without a car? And I was like, yes, I do expect you to believe that. And I think that was I don't think they opposed the development as much as they questioned the basics of living without a full dependency on a car. What was the name of the book you found the slide showing? It's called Country of Cities. It's a really, really great book. You can email me and I'll send you a link to Amazon. Yermi. Okay, I think these are all the questions I see here. Thank you very much for attending. It's 11:33. We try to keep our webinars no longer than half an hour. Today was a special webinar led by me. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day.